Sunday, June 27th, we are talking FAAB. We've got a guest, special in quotes, everybody, to discuss it with us. We're going to go through player breakdowns on the offensive side, two-star pitchers, and we've got trade talk. Stick with us. It's time for Dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just JP Crawford that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again this evening by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room alongside Roto Ronnie, famous friend of the show, joining us this evening with his full out Blue Jay extravaganza. Like I think we need to get it into this view, Ronnie, just so we can take a full peek at this whole setup. Like this is like the home of Homer right here.
And you wouldn't know it from looking at the background. Never heard him say a good thing about the team. Does not like the Toronto Blue Jays.
Not that guy or that guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That guy.
Are you allowed to show that name in the corner? Like, is that allowed?
It needs to be replaced for sure.
So getting into it this evening, we're obviously here on the live stream Sunday night. We're here every Sunday. Let's Get FAABulous, brought to you by us here at Dingers, because we're still waiting on Waterloo Dark to sponsor Robbie. That day is coming in the near future. But we'll get into it here. Rob, do you want to give our guest a more formal entry or intro into the show this evening?
Yeah, sure. So this is Roto Ronnie. You can find him on Twitter at Roto Ronnie, all one word, as you see down below for him. You can find me at Robbie Baseball 1 or Ty at Tourney Boss. And of course, you can find us, and where we're streaming live right now is at Dingers Pod. We are, of course, a dynasty-based fantasy baseball podcast, and we also do this. We do the FAAB. We try to help you out in your redrafty type leagues. We try to help you out in your keeper leagues, and of course the dynasty leagues. And tonight we're going to go through some of the hitters that have changing, evolving values in dynasty, also likely waiver wire candidates for you. We do the 2-for-1. We've got the hitters, and then we're going to talk two-star pitchers because it's important. And we are approaching trade deadlines and things of that nature. We are in and around that 1 month area out, and we're going to have a little bit of trade talk on that as well. So, Ronnie, welcome. You do have your website, rotoronnie.com. If you want to plug that or just update it, do something.
Yeah, I meant to update it before this little get together here, but I ran out of time this morning. So maybe tomorrow. Just like a Roto player, huh? You need that extra time because you got to say I got till the end of the season. That's true. Just got to bring it home at the end.
Well, here, Ty, let's do a quick question for Ronnie before we even go any further. We often watch or are commenting now about sites and people doing updated rankings in Dynasty. We're starting to see it. Now, we know the Dynasty field's a lot smaller, right? If we're going to call fantasy sports a niche thing, which whatever, you can say fantasy baseball goes a little further, and then Dynasty fantasy baseball even further into that. But there are people writing updates before the draft for the Rule 4 draft, and before the next J2 class comes out. They're saying updated dynasty rankings. How do you feel seeing this stuff in June?
In June? You got to know where they're going.
That's the last time they likely wrote them, just for clarification, would have had to have been no later than March, because then the season started. So we're talking 3 months, 200-ish at bats, 70-ish innings pitched. And now we're seeing updates. What do you, as a avid dynasty and keeper player, how do you feel seeing that content spread on the internet?
I don't mind it, but I don't check it out really until about a week or two after the draft when things settle. I really like to see it once players sign, because it's completely pointless for a lot of leagues, like when the guys don't sign and then they're like in the rankings and then you just have to exclude them. that becomes really annoying, especially for some leagues I'm in. You can take guys that go undrafted, some you can't. So it's just, and most of the drafts I'm in anyway, I think the earliest one is in August for the first year player draft. Most of them are well into the off season. So I'm not really in a big rush to like fantasy relevant rankings for the incoming J4 class. I just, I don't know, let it marinate a little bit more before I want to start looking.
I like that you mixed up the Rule 4 draft with the J2 class. I like how you were able to use the Rule 4 class is what you said.
Oh, I did screw that, didn't I?
But that's okay. That's what happens when you're under the heat of the live stream. But so anybody knows, Ty, you've told them before, I'm sure, on previous streams. If you are here with us, feel free to pop a question in. We can answer it as we go through live. We are more than happy to go off topic if you've got something specific to your situation that you want to talk about, or as we go through players and you want to know maybe a little bit more information or something like that, you can definitely hit us with that. But I can't go any further, Ty, without a refreshment.
Why? That's appropriate.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Boom.
Ronnie totally missed the mark on his
chance. Where's
I'm a little rusty.
And what is it that you are enjoying in your bottle tonight, Ronnie?
The usual steam whistle.
Steam whistle. Says the huge as if we're always with him. The huge.
I feel like Ronnie's fridge just goes like the choo every time. Just because it's a sponsored fridge, right? I have some positive news on the bourbon front. First off, the Woodford energy is gone. That is the emptiness of the most recent bottle. But I am getting my second vaccine shot, which means I am going to be allowed by the Tsar of Canada to leave the country and come back in unimpeded. So I'm very excited about that.
Is that the first thing you're going to do?
Right. I'm going to go pick up some new bourbon from like Tom's wine shop or whatever the appropriate liquor store is.
The first one across the border. You should have just got your shot in Sarnia or Port here. Sarnia? Yeah, Sarnia, which is the Canadian side of one of the crossings. And then you just go directly over after. Like, look, I got my second one. Let me into your country. I need to buy your booze and turn around and come home.
You got to fly though, still, don't you? You can't drive. I'm pretty sure you can fly.
You can drive in starting
until the 21st. Yeah,
July 5th.
Is that when it is?
Fully vaccinated. July 5th is the day.
Well, I've been very fortunate on the alcohol front to have my wife, who has gone to the LCBO for me, which is, of course, the very friendly sounding Liquor Control Board of Ontario. Yes, yes, very much.
On point branding.
Yeah, tonight I'm having a rally, Trailblazer Golden Ale, which I don't remember if I've had it before. I don't clean up down here, and there's a lot of empties. I don't see another empty of it, but I'm excited to have it. Thirsty Trailblazer is our OG flagship golden ale. Oh, it's the OG. That means Chris McBride will like it. Crafted with post-adventures in mind. It's refreshing, unfiltered, and formulated with artisanal salt. Oh, well, I'm out. Artisanal anything? Are you shitting me? Come on. Artisanal salt? Get bent, man. Get the Windsor salt. That's the good stuff.
You're way too angry to be drinking a beer right now. Like, calm yourself.
It's because it says artisanal, and it's stupid for beers to try to describe themselves.
Listen, I'm on your side, but
Robbie, is that still a full Maker's Mark behind you there too?
It is.
Yes,
he's gonna give it to me. I'm waiting for it.
I got an empty one over here. You should send it up.
It's gonna be a 10-year soon.
And I got a little of this if I need it. I need to get a Corona. I saw somebody do Jaeger and Corona, and I was like, that would probably be interesting. I'm down with the licorice flavor.
Yeah, I am too, but that sounds terrible. But on the note, really quickly, for those of you that are listening to the podcast and having no idea what Rob is pulling from his basement, this is the appropriate time to remind you can join us from the live stream and see the murder room firsthand. You've known about it, you've learned about it. Now you can see it in crystal clear 720.
And it will be better lit. So this won't be here next week. because I've been working in my shop and I took down a wall. I took down 5 very nice pot lights, and I'm going to stick a little piece of drywall up here and put those pot lights in so I can take out this sensor LED that I've got, this 4 foot long, and I'm going to put that in the shop because that's going to be more better for me, technically speaking.
Hey, we have a more better alert. That's great. I love when we hear about more better. That's excellent. So let's get into it, Robbie. Do we want to kick it off with pitchers this evening? Kind of
sure. Let's mix it up. Yeah, let's mix it up because pitchers are what the people want. So I'm going to rhyme them all off, guys.
Talk about number 2. That's really why I started there.
Well, let me rhyme them all off, and then Ty and Ronnie, maybe you guys can just volley back and forth the names that you want to discuss, and we can go there, and then we'll go back up through with the hitters. But these are potential 2-start guys for next week that are not your stud type automatic starts. So anybody that there might be an interesting conversation to have, here they are. Jared Eichhoff with the Mets, Eli Morgan with Cleveland, Matt Manning with Detroit, Wade Miley with Cincinnati, King with the Yankees, Duffy with Kansas City, Faria, is that right? Yeah, Jacob Faria, is that right? Faria with Arizona. We talked about him last week, and I was excited that he was there. Eshelman with Baltimore, Wade LeBlanc, everybody, with St. Louis, Anderson with Pittsburgh, Freeland with Colorado, Sandoval, got to keep saying him until he's 100% owned, John Gray with Colorado, and Chris Flexen on the cusp. Rich Hill, more to talk about with him as far as trade goes. Same with Trevor Rogers with Miami, Jamison Tyon. Billy B wants to know some info about him. Mejia with Cleveland, Urania with Detroit, Brad Keller with Kansas City. What a frustrating season it's been for him. Santillan with Cincinnati. And Ronnie, I'd like you at some point to discuss the recent trade you made of acquiring him in a 30-team league. McGill with the Mets, who I don't think many people will know much about him. New to the game. Ober with Minnesota, still starting. Caleb Smith was there with Arizona. DeJong with Pittsburgh. And finally, Fulte with Texas. Let's give it to the guest first. Ronnie, who would you like to discuss?
Wade Miley's my man. Wade Miley, which ties into the what's his name down there, Stanton. But we can get to that later. But
good time for me to have a drink.
Wade Miley's my guy right now. I picked him up on the dirt cheap a long time ago, and he is just tearing it up the last 30 days and looks like a different guy out there. And like at this point in the season, I think you can find him on your waiver wire in some like 15, 12 team leagues. I think he's going to be out there. And
69% owned. 69% owned right now, and that's up 6% from last week, which has continued to rise. So it is possible, Ronnie. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. If he is still out there, get him now. Isn't more than just a streamer. I like where he's going. I would just ride him for the rest of the year. I'm like my 6 or 7 starter on my team.
Well, and I'll jump in quick on that, because what I like about Miley though, and we've talked about it a lot this season in prepping and getting ready for trade season, like. Wade Miley is a trade candidate. Like it is very unlikely Cincinnati's going to play themselves into a scenario where they're not trading Wade Miley. So I think he's an obvious guy. I think he's going to stay NL side because he keeps getting lit up every time he goes to the AL. So I think you're looking for him to find an NL home, which those Mets might be a reasonable option. For the love of God, get Peterson out of that rotation. I think
although Peterson screwed me and had a pretty solid start in the second game on Saturday, but other than that, yes, get him out.
I mean, if your season highlight is a second game of a doubleheader, that's a problem, right?
And it wasn't dominant. It was just like I picked him to suck. Because if you go to @RobbieBaseball1, I'm picking 2 guys that I think are going to do well. One guy to consider if they're not available, and a guy to not start. He was a not start for me, and he did well. I was ticked. Jay Happ was the not start for me today, and he did well. So maybe it's a good idea to just go against who I think is going to suck, but then consider the other 3 options on their own merit.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting guy to own ahead of the trade deadline. I just think he's going to be in a better situation, which should help the wins, should help his overall value. So I agree with Ronnie. Like if you're in way before, good on you. If you're just getting in now, there's still probably value there. And odds are he's going to be the back end rotation on a contending team, right? The Yankees could be another reasonable option as well.
Yeah, 75 2/3 innings this year for Miley, 6-4 record, 62 Ks, a 2.85 ERA, which has been about the same over the last 2 weeks. But for the month, to Ronnie's point, he's been under 2 with that ERA and 4 quality starts in the last month. So definitely somebody to consider. And if for some reason he is on your waiver wire, put him on your roster. Someone's worse. Or you're one of those teams, like all of our teams probably, that are filled up with IL guys, and you're just waiting for someone to come back. Well, look at who's going to be gone the longest and dump them and get a guy like Miley and then just make it happen for yourself. So, Ty, who would you like to go to next?
Yeah, Matt Manning's my guy for this week. I think a guy that had high profile coming up, still in my mind has a high profile, but I think a lot of people have soured on Matt Manning. And I think there's an opportunity to buy him in this little window of success that people shouldn't be selling, but I think they're going to. And for me, the big reason is fastball control, right? We've got a good heater here that's offset by some good off-speed stuff. The big issue here for me that is going to get cleaned up, fastball command. He's throwing 66% fastballs down the dick. Like his heat map literally is lighting up the middle of the plate. And so that's not good. And if he continues to do that, he's going to have a rough go. So what I'm trying to prep you for is the odds are the next 2 starts probably not going to go so well, right? And I think we'll see improvement beyond that, similar to what we've talked about in other pitchers. So I think your window to buy is going to be about the next 3 weeks here on Matt Manning. And I think you need to nail it. And I think we're going to see 2 bad starts out of him this week. So he's not my guy to be my 2-start pitching guy, but I wanted to note him for kind of the opposite reason, because I just think he's the guy to stay away from this week. I don't know what you feel about him, Ronnie.
Matt Manning, I feel like, is an impossible ad in any dynasty league. If you're playing like a 30-team, 25-man dynasty, no one is going to trade him to me for.
Hold on now. In a league you and I play in, Ronnie, he was traded last week and that was in the to be named later, which is a points league with salaries. Yeah. He was traded for Zach Greinke, and Greinke has rest of this year and next year.
That's the guy that I traded Miley to. And I was trying to get Manning, actually, but he's traded in that deal. So that's all I'm a little upset about.
So
that.
just so you're because to your point about like people won't trade him, I think he was so bad in AAA. His numbers looked so bad in AAA. And because other players and pitchers, and I mean, we could just blame Kansas City. We talk enough about that rotation, the struggles of their young starters coming up. I think people are bailing on starting pitchers and saying, here's where they are today at their peak, or, they're really early in their career. I'm going to trade them. Today I picked up Tristan McKenzie in that same 30-team league. He's on a first. He just got demoted. So he's on the down cycle right now. And I picked him up in exchange for Mercedes, who's also on a first, who I was happy to ship away, and the rest of season, DJ LeMahieu, and then he's a free agent. So it's entirely possible I could just get LeMahieu back after this year via free agency, and I'm happy to trade Mercedes because I have Ohtani, who now does have outfield eligibility, but regardless, Mercedes has just been down, and his start to the year was so good that his numbers and everything still appear good, although he's now almost hurting you. But anyway, just to say that like Matt Manning, I think could be acquired, and definitely hit us up at Dingers Pod if you have a scenario where you either are the Matt Manning owner and you're considering it, or you're looking to acquire and you have some trade negotiations. We'd love to get that information as to what's going on in your league, because we'd like to report it back to all of the listeners.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm definitely in on Matt Manning. If you can get him, I would get him. For this season, if you're a single season, I think he could be a guy at the bottom of your roster for streaming purposes, and obviously for like dynasty, if you can get him now on the cheap, I'm all over that. It's funny that you mentioned McKenzie too. That was, I think, my first rookie pick in to be named later, and I traded him a long time ago.
He needs to be off your roster if you own him anywhere.
Nope.
He needs to go bye. Anyway, but the
I'm
point
loading him up.
To finish on Manning, 15% owned in Yahoo. So you're going to see him in a lot of redraft leagues. He's going to be available because he's lesser known in those formats. Fantrax, dynasty levels, you're going to see him owned, obviously, at a higher percentage per Ronnie's point. So, just know your league, know what's available. Mm-hmm. But I'm staying away from Manning this week. But if I'm in a deeper league, I'm looking to acquire, honestly. Like, he's a guy I want to be owning. Not for this year. I'm looking at him as a 22 ad.
All right. So, Ronnie, who's another pitcher on the list here you'd like to discuss?
Oh, I'm thinking King, because I almost put King on this list myself. So whoever put King on there, we're thinking the same wavelength.
Well, I just put King on everything because the man, the myth, the legend. So a guy that came in last year as a bullpen. This is, of course, Michael King with Los Yankees. And let's see, the game log for him, what was it last week? His start was 4 2/3 innings, 5 Ks. But for the year, 40 innings pitched. He's got a 4 ERA, 4.05 ERA. That's fine. 34 strikeouts. No quality starts or anything. But that's because he hasn't yet been given the starter go get him, which he's now being given by the Yankees. So this means, guys like Devi Garcia are waiting. Luis Gil, who I think is still AA, is one of those waiting in the wing guys. But
we're not going to see Luis Gil this year, though.
No, but yes. So what there's somebody else. Clark Schmidt was who I was thinking of. This is King's opportunity. Prior to your point about possibly acquiring Wade Miley or a different starter for the Yankees, this is them saying, well, what do we have in-house? What could we do? And last year, King was really, really good out of the bullpen in the playoffs. So it's a matter of, is this him stretched out? Is this going to be peak potential for him? Which means it's going to be harder for you to acquire in Dynasty. But in redraft, where the guy's 1% owned, you can look and see who the matchups are against next week, and you can take a look. If the Yankees were willing to give him 4 2/3, that means they're in theory going to be able to give him 6 innings, which means he could be in line for a quality start if he does his job. So I like King in the Listener League. I mentioned it before. I made a trade in the offseason, traded Ayers Arena. I got back Baum and King. And King was the big part that I acquired in 2 different Dynasty leagues because I thought people are just thinking he's nothing. But you have to listen to the ball games and watch baseball to understand that there's more going on with Michael King than just the stat line, which makes it look like, oh, he's a peripheral piece, right? He's the last man in the bullpen. And now, we got to talk about this on another episode, Ty, but once upon a time, it was a 7-man bullpen. Then it became 8. Now there are 9-man bullpens on the regular in MLB. Yeah. And guys like King and others can just sit there. Who was it we talked about last week? Suarez with Philly? Ranger Suarez. That's another one of those guys, right? They slide in and then everybody just completely forgets about the potential of them. And eventually they can swoop in and get those jobs. So that's Michael King.
Really quick on Michael King. The one thing I want to point out too, is I think his value will increase the longer leash he has because in the starts.
Oh, absolutely.
The starts I've seen though, he struggles out of the gate. And so then he settles in and he has some more dominant back half of games. So I think you're going to see some success here. I think the Yankees still might have to trade him as a major league player to get the guy to fill that roster spot. Because I do think the Yankees are going to acquire somebody. So a package of Estevan Florial and Michael King makes a ton of sense for a team to give up, say, a Wade Miley or somebody equivalent, right? That's a reasonable package.
I'd do that offer in fantasy.
That's right. It's a great. So I don't know if you feel differently, Ronnie, about Michael King, but I just wanted to point that one out because I do think you're going to see a little bit increase in success out of Michael King, assuming he gets to the 5 and 6 inning number.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's just a matter for me when I'm playing fantasy, it's just a matter of the stats on the page. It's not necessarily like a section in, but it's going to get the job done for me. If I'm in a league where I'm looking for a 2-star starting pitcher that needs a stream, he's definitely an option for me this week, and then just cycle through him after that, depending how he does.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Ronnie, to you, do you have another? Ty, to you. We just talked King here. We've got Miley and Manning down. Who's next on the docket?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Brad Keller. I think who is an interesting one, and I mainly want to pick this one because I want to get Robbie's take. Robbie's been on the Brad Keller wagon longer than anybody that I know. I think
Rule 5, baby. Rule 5.
That's right. I still think there's huge value here with Brad Keller. And I think innings for sure, which, in the second half of this injury-plagued season, innings are going to matter, right? So that's what I want to point out that piece there because there's lots of guys in this list. There's lots of guys that we've all owned this year that have not pounded innings or have been injured. So I don't think Keller's that guy, but I think he's going to be pretty healthy. He's pretty stocky, well-built, like we talk about here on the show regularly. So I'm liking him. I don't know what his matchups are this week off the top of my head. I don't know if you have them, Robbie, if you can pull them, but Brad Keller's definitely a guy I want to own. So I'd love to see what your thoughts are after the rough start this year.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, Ty. It's been a rough start. It's been frustrating to watch. So if you count Keller, Singer, Bubik, Cower, and Lynch as 5 of the KC 6, and the other one being Asa Lacy, who was just drafted, it's not transitioning like it's supposed to should. He's 9% owned right now in Yahoo, and that's courtesy of this ugly 6.39 ERA. It actually went up last week. It's went up over the last 2 months. It's been going up the last month. He is not getting the strikeouts like he's supposed to. He's not keeping runners in check. He's not keeping the ball down. He's just getting beat up everywhere. And the saving grace for Brad Keller is supposed to be that there's decent defense in KC, and it's a beautiful ballpark for a pitcher. None of that can save you when you're giving up as much contact as he is. And like, what's his hits per nine? 16. Last week he was 6. That's lots of hits. But over the season, he's almost 12 hits per nine. So the ball's everywhere, and that's what's crushing him. 3 quality starts on the year, in 76 innings last year, which was also a down year, but that was injury related. And as far as being down, in 54 and 2/3 innings, he had 5 quality starts and an ERA, a sub 2.50 ERA. So this is a matter of, is Brad Keller off right now and trying to battle through? Possibly. So I would rather stick with Brad Keller than I would give him back to the pool and get him off my roster. And in Dynasty, I am considering fishing him around to see if other teams are interested. So I do have Keller in a few Dynasty leagues, and I'm exploring that option. And it has more to do with the fact that I think I'm going to view Keller as far more valuable than other potential owners, which is a good reason to fish somebody around, right? If you're trying to see, am I crazy or not, go and, if you own the guy or roster the guy, go and check with a few other teams if they're interested. And when guys come back to you and say no, then say, okay, well, I got to remember that, right? Like, devalue him a bit.
And we talked about the innings, right, being a huge piece. So he has like 10 straight starts with 5 or more innings. So that's good in 2021 Major League Baseball on average. So the other piece I want to note, career numbers, ERA, April 5.98. He was bad in April, right? Then he got kind of good in May. Pitched to a 3.86, career number 3.84, right on career average. June, which we're just about to finish up, 5.05. He's currently at a 7.82. But July, August, September in this order: 3.63 career, 3.24 career, 2.68 to finish off in September. So this is why I'm pushing you in that direction, because the back half numbers are very strong for Brad Keller, and they're very, very enticing. So could this be the start? I doubt it, because he's got Boston this week. That's bad for Brad Keller, so you're not going to want to touch that one. But beyond that, like, you might want to pick up Brad Keller ahead of somebody in a 2-start format, knowing you want him for the next week and beyond. The back half of this season would be a good addition to your roster.
Well, the other saving grace for Keller too, Ty, is the fact that I mentioned 4 other starting pitchers that KC has rolled out this year who are outside of Singer, who have been no better. Yeah. So it's not like Keller's losing his job because Bubic is pushing, because Lynch is pushing, because Cowher is pushing. 2 of those 3 guys have all been sent down, and Bubic, who's up, is not looking good. Not looking like he was last year, which was potential based prospect as opposed to like impact. And then you've got Singer. Singer looks like he's there. He's good. Great. But lots of opportunity, with Duffy coming back, and he just reached the threshold of 10 years of MLB service and 5 with the same team. So that means he now can veto any trade. The likelihood of Duffy getting traded goes down, which means he could just be sticking around that rotation a little bit longer, or it makes it a little more intriguing. So whatever. Keller's a weird one for me. So Ronnie, you got another guy to discuss here?
Oh yeah. Let's go with Ober. I like Ober. I own him in a couple of leagues, actually.
All right. Tell us about Minnesota's Ober.
I don't have anything up in front of me on him, but
perfect.
Honestly, he's been saving my butt in a couple of leagues lately. He's been coming up from in that system, my minors. And he's just been serviceable for me. And he's just an excellent mid-season 2-start fill-in guy, and I have no complaints about him. He's just the kind of guy that I like his depth on my team, especially if you have the ability to stash these guys in the minors that are under the minor 50 innings pitched career, and just bring them up and bring them down. Love to do that in pretty much every league where I can. And Ober fits the bill. He's got the job right now. I don't know how long he's going to keep it for, but he's definitely serviceable for me.
Yeah, 2% owned in Yahoo on the year in 21 1/3 innings pitch. He's got 23 Ks, a 4.64 ERA, no quality starts, no wins, no losses. But again, to Ronnie's point, he's getting into games and starting now. So he's had 2 starts over the last 2 weeks. Finally now, not finally, but lining up for a 2-start week now. But it's been 4 innings and 4 1/3 innings, and it was 6 Ks in the 4-inning start, which was nice to see. But then only 2 Ks last week. Didn't take the loss again, but yeah, he's one of those guys who's on a team that's supposed to be good, supposed to be getting a ton of runs, but they're not. And I think it was last week he was against Cleveland, if I remember correctly. And Ober's one of those guys, very much like Randy Dobnik, very much like Devin Smeltzer, who just appear and they're there and they're not terrible, but they're not yet clicking. So
they're the kind of guy that wins you a league in the sense of like, just if it's a points league, he's just padding you the points. If it's a roto or categories league with all the injuries, it's just a body that is easy to obtain and just fills in for you when you need him to fill in. And like I said, if you could stash him like in your minor system and ride that train up and down, since he's under 50 innings pitched, like all the more power to him.
Well, and we really need him to stay at the major league level so that we can have prospect hype versus like journeyman Ober Wander as a versus episode segment. That'd be
That's
fantastic.
not bad. That is not bad. I'm just trying to look here to see roughly what Ober's done point total wise, which we know we do have a fair number of point players here. So to your point, Ronnie, I'm checking out your San Francisco Giants in that points league where you mentioned you own him, just to see what it was that he did this period. So in 4 1/3 innings, it's hard to see a guy getting north of 12 points, and especially on only 2 Ks. So I'm going to guess that he was somewhere in the whoops. Oh man, just pressing buttons. Why do you own Alex Young? Just checking to see here. You said, where is Ober? Have you promoted him?
I haven't. I've used him a couple of times in that league. It's another league that I don't actually play in with you that he's saved my butt there.
So from May 18th, which was his first appearance, these are all starts for him. So 5 starts on the year, 5 points, 10 points, 12 points, 17 points, which was a 7-2 win in Seattle. Last week it was Cincinnati, sorry, not Cleveland, not Cleveland. He had 3 points. So if you're over undering average, exactly to your point, this is the kind of guy you can look in on a 2-start week right now. I think it's reasonable to say Ober should be north of 25 points at the end of this week, depending on that second matchup. So
like sometimes people just get hung up on these guys that are nothing, the no name cliche. The best thing that I do is I honestly just put a piece of tape over like the names. I'm still
that's exactly
the last 30 days and just go off of that.
Yeah, one of the worst things you can do is believe in what others have said about someone who hasn't done it yet themselves, and just look at results when you're in season. It's great in the off season to look at a lot of other intangibles, but sometimes you need to know Joe Guy is better than Joe Superstar, because right now Joe Guy is getting it done and Joe Superstar's got X nagging injury or what have you. So
honestly, my biggest tip and strategy in all of my leagues at this point, once you hit June, whenever I'm looking at the waiver wire, it's automatic filter last 30 days, filter last 30 days. That's the only thing I'm looking at, because anyone who's a major player is already on a team. So you're looking at the players that people have missed. So last 30 days, and then just like Wisdom would have been a guy a couple of days ago or weeks ago that you couldn't be able to pick up. And just guys that are just crushing it, like Duger in San Francisco. I picked him up last week in a league. He's absolutely been destroying it the last 30 days.
Yep.
So just like cycling through those kinds of.
Yeah, when we get into the hitters, you'll start to see some of those guys who have had really strong last 30 days. And for Ober this week, it's away to Chicago and away to KC. So Kansas City's not bad. They've been brutal. Not bad as a matchup. They've been brutal the last month. But the Park, again, as we mentioned, with somebody else. So Ty, why don't you give us one more pitcher and then we'll move on to some of the hitters.
Yeah, I think I'll go to one. And Robbie, you and I talked about him before we jumped on. That's going to be unowned in almost every format. It's Jake Faria in Arizona, who is back on the radar after a couple of injury-plagued seasons.
He's back.
If somebody has him still rostered, you need to ask that person why and send it to us on Twitter at DingersPod and let us know why that player is still rostered. But he does have some upside, and he is going to get a chance to start this week. I believe it has long-term play. as we talked about before, Robbie, but I do think he's worth owning in deep formats for sure.
Yeah, he's 27 years old. Like,
yeah.
He's been hurt. It's entirely feasible to understand. He's not owned in our listener league, which makes sense. Because of the format of the league, he's not a prospect that could be put in the minors, and we have a small bench. So that's a viable reason why, and that's a 15-team roto. But he is owned now in a 30-team real money auction league that the three of us play in. He's available in a 20-team 8x8 that I play in, where I'm looking to find a way to get him on my roster for tomorrow. I picked him up in 2 30-team leagues that he was not owned in. Like, he's overlooked is what I'm getting at here. The reason being, the numbers aren't great at the MLB level, but he was getting a ton of Ks in AAA, and the ERA was higher. But that's one of those things where you got to weigh it, right? Like, if you're talking about points, I picked him up in a points league for next week. He's got 2 starts. I can put him in. I can try it out.
Robbie, he did pitch most of his career in the AL East, which has been the best offensive division for a while. Slowly shifting, but still pretty dang good. They're starting to be more balanced, is what I mean. The other thing about the minor numbers, the inflated ERA, PCL, everybody's ERA is inflated in the PCL, right? That's just a fact. That's why hitters coming out of the PCL hit 370, and then all of a sudden are 260 hitters at the major league level, right? There's altitude in a lot of those parks. Plays a factor, as we see in Colorado throughout the season. So definitely upside here with Faria. I mean, he's not going to win a Cy Young, right? We're not talking about a guy coming out of the woodwork and owning, a significant portion of market share. But to Ronnie's point earlier, it can help you win championships. Even if it's for 6 starts down the stretch, you only pick 6 out of the next 10, still could be valuable. Robbie, what do you got?
To your point, Ty, I wanted to throw something fun at you. Would you drop Reynaldo Lopez for Jake Faria for that little boost right now?
No, I'm dying on that hill.
Well,
I'm a dynasty.
In a keep forever dynasty. I am trying to figure out here, because in a 24-team points dynasty, I have the option of dropping him. Now, Zach Lothar is another guy I could drop. That would make sense, or I could drop Jose Alvarado or Ranger Suarez. I just picked up Suarez, so I don't want to do that. So I'm thinking it's either Lothar or Reynaldo Lopez, and I feel like in this league, people are going to see that Lopez isn't playing, so I'm okay to let him go.
How deep is this league?
24-team minors can be max 12. So we were talking about 350-ish minor league guys, because people stash minors on. We're allowed to have, I think, 30 players, like, starting roster in your bench. So it's somewhat sizable, but
I could see Lopez being a bullpen arm moving forward, a very good one.
Right. But he's not going to be closing in Chicago, and in a points format, that's going to suffer.
But I could see him also being shipped out as a trade chip, because he still has a lot of control that a major league team could acquire as part of a deadline deal with Chicago. That might make sense for some of those mid-tier teams that don't want to give up a piece, that maybe this could fill a gap, right? Like, this could be a really interesting acquisition for somebody like Chicago in Rodriguez. I can never remember the first name of that guy there. Richard
Rodriguez with Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So like, that could be a potential trade target for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's going to need somebody to step onto the bump every 5 days. Right, like they don't have a lot of really reliable options that are ready.
They've got Stephen Wright in the minors, Ty, the knuckleballer who's going to come up, and I talked about him before, and I said, everybody go get him if you can stash him, and I don't know if that'll work, but
I mean, honestly, if there's a city that's ready for like knuckle workers, it is Pittsburgh, man. They grind. So
it depends on your. For me, it depends on your team. Like, if you're in Dynasty and you have a shot at winning, you ditch Lopez and go with the guy from Arizona.
Right. Yeah, you take Faria.
If you're out of it, there's way more upside in keeping Lopez stashed on your bench or in your minors.
Yeah, this league has a weird format where every year up until last year, because of the shortened schedule, we did 3 matchups. And then this year, the week the season started, I just sent a note to the commissioner and said, hey, are you going to get around to lessening from the 3 matchups back down to the single? And he sent the message back to me. No, we're keeping it at 3. I just haven't told everyone yet. I'm like, what the hell, man? Because sometimes you can like cater your matchups. Like you're not going to take a guy like Faria with his 2 starts if you're not sure if he can get 15 points out of those 2 starts. And you might take somebody who's a little more plain Jane. Maybe they'll get you 10 points with that 1 start. But for the format where you got to go max out all the time when you're playing against 3 other teams instead of just 1, it really kind of it changes the flow of what you're trying to get out of each week. Instead of just trying to beat your opponent, you're just max score the end and risk everything at all times to get that max score. So I thought that was a little funny that the guy did, and I know he's retired because he mentioned something about being retired and then posted a few things if anybody wanted like some type of a paint, whatever kind of hobby work he does. And he does like 15 fantasy football leagues. So this guy just does not care too much about the baseball side, but he commissions every league that he plays in. So I think he has issues if anyone objects to anything he says. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, let's move to players. So we've got 3 catchers. I'll just throw the names out, and then Ty, why don't you take the floor, because I know you love catchers. So we've got Reese McGuire, looks like he's the starting catcher in Toronto, 3% owned. Tyler Stevenson, first base eligible as well, only 10% owned still, but he was the second best catcher in 8x8 the last 30 days. So that's your typical 5x5, but that also includes the OPS, the walks, and the strikeouts, because we know Daddy likes to talk about walks and strikeouts. And we've got Max Stassi with LA, who's 38% owned, and he was the 7th best catcher over the last 30 days. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll run with Reese because I kind of want to bounce this one off Ronnie and get his take too.
You should have said you'll play with Reese.
Yeah, I couldn't. Nope, I'm not going there.
Thank you. I'm out.
Reese has been hitting the ball everywhere. He's lengthened that Toronto lineup in a very scary way. The 810. How
did he lengthen it?
Yeah, the 810 OPS is impressive at this point out of the catcher position. Like left-handed bat, he's going to get to play in Toronto. Like we're going to see Alejandro Kirk start to look towards a rehab here in the next probably 20 days or so. Gabriel Moreno is destroying the baseball at AA right now with a 4-digit OPS. So there's going to be some compression here at the catcher position is what I wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So because we're all Torontonian central here, for everyone in Dynasty who's not yet aware of Gabriel Moreno, he's Toronto's best catching prospect. He's playing so well right now that they are moving him around. He was once upon a time a shortstop, but was so poor at it that they eventually shifted him to catcher and are now putting him back in the field because they want his bat in the lineup at AA so much. And it's not the AA, like it's not the Fisher Cats is it Fisher Cats? Yeah. It's not the Fisher Cats that are saying, let's get him more at bats. It's Toronto's front office saying, hey, get him on the field, put him in. We want more at bats. We want to see, obviously they want to see if they can move him up. Now, if that means he ends up in Toronto, let's hope not. Let's hope we don't get to the point where we're forcing him up, but consider it. That's all.
I've said this for a while about Moreno. He's not a major league catcher. He's not big enough. He's not going to be a major league catcher, right? He is going to play a different position at the major league level. And if he is a catcher, he is going to have injury issues. And that needs to be stated. So I'm not owning Moreno if he is not anything outside of the catcher position. So
yeah, I'm just saying he's going to be the next hot ticket. That's why I just wanted to make that little note, that just so people know, he prior to this development stage, he was not a catcher originally, and it looks like Toronto is willing to move him off of it, just like they forced Kirk up. If they think it's going to help them, Toronto might be willing to kind of like blow that final stage of development. Let's just hope not. But
4 serviceable catchers right ahead of him right now.
Well, Riley Adams doesn't look like it after that, or after the stint he's had, but typically,
I mean, but Riley Adams skipped AAA because of the injuries, right? Like Riley Adams got forced into the major league level when he wasn't ready, right? So I don't know that that's fair to paint Adams that way. Adams might be the best major league hitter out of those 4. And I might be. There's a huge asterisk on that, but he has the best power out of that group by a significant margin. And Moreno is close, but not more than Adams. And Adams is a reasonable backstop. Like I was pleasantly surprised by the defense, right? And so I wasn't expecting it to be as polished as it was for a guy that size. It was actually pretty tight. So I think he's going to be around, but that's I think why Moreno is not going to play catcher. I don't know where they're going to put him. Like Toronto has kind of a problem of riches at this point. So,
well, they don't have a legitimate third baseman, right? That's the one thing we know for sure. Toronto does not have a third baseman at the MLB level.
Okay.
Ty, you and I have discussed the fact that maybe this is where Kevin Smith should be moving from Buffalo's shortstop to Buffalo's third baseman to see what he can do there if they want to bring him up and see what they've got. Could be lightning in a bottle for Kevin Smith because we've seen him struggle mightily, 1 billion Ks. But now it looks like he's got a good power stream for him. But anyway, we can do the Toronto Homer Out podcast.
I was just going to say we're getting a little trouble Homer, but it's Groshans, and we just need to patch it to Groshans.
Well, okay, maybe, but that's more the highly touted prospect than it is the potential next guy up, because I think that might be in Toronto's best interest long term. But at the same time, they might want to just get a guy up who's doing well in AAA and see if that can relate. Speaking of a guy who's doing well in AAA and got promoted, Patrick Wisdom. Ronnie, you own him. You would not trade him to me in a 30-team league. I'm curious to know how you feel now that we've gone up with Wisdom and he has dropped down. 280 average on the year, but the last 2 weeks he's returned to a bench bat and he's got a 185 average. The stats are looking good though. 16 runs, 14 RBIs, a stolen base, and 10 dingers. But that's now all in the past. Everything has been crushed right down. What are your thoughts on Wisdom moving forward? Give us your wisdom on Wisdom.
Well, firstly, I just charge the Robbie premium whenever we're in a trade talk. So, like,
yep, that's
for you.
I know that. I know that exists.
Yeah. But he was in my minors. I actually picked him up in another league as well. I'm not really in love with him, especially in that league. I have like 5 first basemen. He's first and third base, but he's just a depth guy for me. And I saw right before we got started here that Rizzo had to leave the game. So I know he's got third base now, but he might just get more opportunities, and we'll just see where it goes. And it could be a lightning in a bottle kind of guy. Like Bautista was 29 when he came up and had his amazing years. So you never know. If he doesn't cost you much to own, or I don't need the roster space, I'll keep him on there. But it's not. Yeah. He's just a guy to help me win.
All right. Speaking of a guy that just helps win, Ty Wilmer Flores with San Francisco, first base, second base, and if that wasn't enough, third base eligible on Yahoo, 15% owned on Yahoo as well. 260 average on the season, which isn't blowing the doors off, but 328 the last month. Counting stats for the season: 25 runs, 24 RBIs, a stolen base, 7 dingas. All good things. And what do I like about Wilmer Flores, Ty? I like the fact that he's got. He gets on base. I like the fact that he's got 18 walks and 23 Ks for the year, and an OPS just under 1,200 the last 2 weeks. So, Ty, do you have any love, hate, or otherwise towards Wilmer Flores? He's on San Francisco. We've talked about how they're just rolling as a team. What do you feel about Flores?
Well, I definitely don't have any hate, because if I did, he might cry.
He thought he got traded. He thought he got traded.
I know. I just had a chance to fire it in there, so I did. Point is, we've seen this from Wilmer Flores before, and then we've seen it disappear just as quickly. So for that reason, I'm out. But if you need a stopgap, he's certainly not going to hurt you, right? So if you're injured and you need to fill a gap, he's a great target for that, because he's going to cost you either nothing on the waiver wire or nothing in a trade. And that's the value you get out of Wilmer Flores. It's certainly not long-term production, that's for sure.
Yeah, dynasty wise, this is the time, right? There is no future value for Wilmer Flores. It's what you see right now, and you should be happy with that. So if you're acquiring, it should be simply because you want value today, not because you're looking down the road with Flores.
That's right.
I agree.
All right. So Ronnie, let's move to you with Bobby Bradley. Now, I drafted Bobby Bradley in our rookie draft in one of the keeper leagues that we are in together. And everybody was like, you drafted Bobby Bradley. Well, suck it. Okay. Because that boy's got power for days, but he's only 17% owned on Yahoo. So not everybody is bought in. Obviously there's contact concerns, a 250 average for the year, but only 2 hits the last week. Not great. 14 runs, 15 RBIs, no stolen bases, but 6 dingers on the brief stint that he's had this year. It's the OPS that's going to keep him up in my mind, and the fact that Cleveland was willing to get rid of Jake Bauers. So I feel like Bradley is first base of the future, first base now for Cleveland. How do you feel about big bat Bobby Bradley?
I'd rather have Patrick Wisdom. Give me some wisdom.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm looking at the last 7, 14, 21 days. I know he's got that prospect. He had a bit of prospect helium, I guess, but he's just not my cup of tea, not my guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you are not interested in
I'm
Dynasty.
pretty sure I was one of the ones that roasted you when you acquired him, and I'm going to stick to that.
All right. Well, we shall see.
Really quickly, if you do the Chris Berman on your podcast right now and you go back a couple episodes, you will see that that's good, right? Yeah.
I like that.
So you will see that I mentioned sell on Bradley. Sell.
Yes.
Early production was there, and I predicted this was coming because it was kind of obvious. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't still see value out of Bradley, right? Like, he's not dead. He's not gone forever. The power is very, very, very real. And Josh Naylor's season is probably over after the crash this afternoon. So there's going to be at-bats for Bradley. He's not going anywhere. So if you're looking for a guy to either fill a hole or be somewhat productive the back half of the season, he could be interesting. So if you didn't trade him, but you definitely missed the window to peak out on value. That was the point in the previous episode. This time I'm still out for me. I don't own him anywhere, but he's not going to kill you, right? But you're looking for 230, 35 bombs. That's your upside to Bradley.
I was just going to make this comparison, which is somewhat poor, but also accurate. Bobby Bradley going 2 for 20 over the last 7 days prior to today can really hurt you in a league, but then he can turn around next week and be the Aaron Judge. And if you are an Aaron Judge owner or have suffered the fate of having played against guys who roster Judge, you know that Judge can just come in and just wipe the floor with you in a week, right? He can have 4 dingers, 12 RBI. He can put up 2 weeks worth of stats in 7 days on you and then be quiet overall. So that might mean he leans more to Roto. And when he's cold, you just take him out and then you wait until you see something happen or the matchups line up and you put him back in.
The OPS is still 940.
That's exactly it. And the OPS is what's going to carry him. Yeah. So on to the next guy here, Ty. I'll give this to you, Jonathan India. This is definitely a dynasty play. 49% owned on Yahoo. Odd that it's this low. But over the last month, this is what has occurred. For the year, India's got a 271 average. But the last 3 weeks, 1 month ago, it was a 330 average. He's batting 330. 340 over the last 2 weeks, 393 the last week. So the numbers for him for the year: 32 runs, 29 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and 6 dingers. Jonathan India is quietly putting together a very good rookie season. What are your thoughts on him in Dynasty? Would you buy, sell, hold, bounced, get him in on the boat?
For me, I'm gonna buy. I was previously a seller of Jonathan India, so he's switched for me a little bit. But one of the big reasons is second base eligibility and likely long-term position. Like that changes the profile for me, because what I saw as an elite prospect at third base was extremely overvalued because there wasn't enough power to justify the position. At second base, I can live with 15 to 20 home runs, right? As long as I'm getting that average, which we're seeing. So I'm changing here a little bit because I thought it was going to be a very empty average at third base. I'm okay with an emptier average at second base. So I'm buying here. I like the upside now. Long-term formats, you can still buy them because the power numbers and the stolen base numbers are very blasé, if you will. So I think definitely. Well,
I think 6 stolen bases is to your benefit as opposed to detriment. So even though it's 6 and 6 right now, I would prefer that in 5x5 or 8x8 over some of the other guys. Now, for example, Nick Madrigal prior to his injury had only 1 stolen base. Very upsetting, Tony La Russa. This is your fault. You're the reason he's hurt. I hate you, Tony La Russa, just as much as I hate Glenn for picking him up in the home league.
But at the same time, if you expect the owner to be locked in because of 6 home runs and 6 stolen bases, that's
sorry,
going to be the case.
Ty.
But yeah,
I misunderstood. I meant from the aspect of acquiring him. I think that's something that I would look for and say, oh well, he's hitting me up, right? Like he's not skunked. That was my mistake on that one. I had to switch to Labatt's Blue for the next one.
Say, you're drinking Blue, and no thank you.
Well, I bought this.
Great segue with skunked for sure.
Well, I was gonna say I chose this thinking that I was gonna get to Kemp earlier, or not earlier, but on time here. But I had to have a drink of the Blue, which I bought last week when it was Father's Day, because that was, as I mentioned on the last one, something my dad would say, go get me a Blue, you son of a bitch. So Tony Kemp with Oakland, second base and outfield eligible, 17% owned on Yahoo. For the year, a 288 average. Nothing wrong with that. Over the last month, 319. Last 2 weeks, 343. Last week, 400 average. Tony Kemp is like an inside top 130 guy right now. Ridiculous. Nobody cares, but in redrafting keeper, 870 OPS plays, right? Having 29 walks to 25 Ks plays. So I feel like he's somebody that everybody should own. Ron, what do you feel about a guy like Kemp down the stretch? 5 outfielder league, we know he's got some value, but beyond that,
I want him at second base.
That's your target for him?
I'm not playing him in the outfield. I think you can find his value is maximized at second base. If you're playing him anywhere other than second base, you're giving up opportunity of something else. So I'm all about him for second base fill-in. If your main guy's gone down, or like whoever you drafted just flat out sucked. But I know for me, like I had Moustakas in a couple of leagues. And so like that, I had him at second base. So he's the exact kind of guy that I'd want to patch in until I can get the Moose back, those kinds of guys.
I feel like this is going to be a lost year for Moustakas. Sorry, Ty.
Isn't every year a lost year for Moustakas?
Well, this is the one where I get a lot of people who are saying, I need someone until he comes back.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking for someone until he comes back. And Kemp obviously fits that bill.
I would love to see the numbers on outs made by Kemp outside the foul lines, just to see if this interesting bump in production is from him just popping weak fly balls up into the crowd that is now field of play. I don't know. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with it, but like, what's the change? Like, what's the logical change here? Like, it's obviously not what I just said, but like what is change for Tony Kemp that all of a sudden he's a baseball player? Because we've seen Tony Kemp for years, like 280 average out of thin air. Like that doesn't happen.
I agree. Somebody that we had talked about, we've talked about him before, so it doesn't need to be a deep dive here. But Ronnie Miles Straw, he's somebody that at the start of the year, everybody was saying, oh, this is a guy, bound like to do great things and to steal a whole bunch of bags. And we've seen 10 stolen bases out of him this year, which like, if we're just going to play the on pace for 20, the average has come up now 266 over the last month. It's been 330. Great for him. OPS is well under 700, but over the last 30 days, again, 850 OPS. So the numbers are coming up for a guy like Straw. He also has shortstop eligibility. Do you like a guy like Straw in a keeper style? We know in Dynasty, people are not going to trade away stolen base guys, right? They get fictitious value based on attempted or presumed stolen base potential. What are your feelings on a guy like Straw?
I like him for the stolen bases. This is a roto play for me. If I'm in a roto league, I want the steals. I want the runs. He's not going to do much for me in home runs or whatever in RBIs. Average, I guess, is average.
Yeah, you've been enjoying it for 30 days, but prior to that, it wasn't great.
Yeah. To me, it's a roto play for the steals, and the steals and the runs, and he just is. That's what you're playing him for.
Okay.
And other formats, I'm not in love with him unless I'm in some weird like head to head where I'm always losing steals. But he's just a steals guy, and if he needs steals, that's what I've been doing.
That's it. So your focus is steal based for him.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he not just 6 years ago Tony Kemp? Like seriously, like Houston Astros center fielder with speed that could potentially play an infield position? Like, is that not the exact profile we saw?
Well, and Ty, I believe for us, we're just waiting for the Miles Straw injury to open the door for Jose Siri, because that's the guy that we've talked more positively about between the two Houston players.
Yeah, we're just waiting for that final straw to break the camel's back, right? So that's that. Robbie can't use his camera over there, but let's dive next one into the shortstop position as well. Is JP Crawford out in Seattle? If Robbie can figure out the camera, I'd kick it back to him because he is our in-house Seattle guy.
I'm still here, right? You can hear me?
Yeah.
Can hear you.
Yeah.
We can't see you. This is better, actually.
Why are you complaining? Why is everybody complaining?
It's just weird.
I'm trying to figure it out. Just
an icon. But, JP Crawford has been quietly having a reasonable season.
I've always been an icon.
Yeah, no, JP Crawford's just always been there. And I think people have very underappreciated what he brings kind of in line with like a Crawford of the big win seasons, like just a guy that's going to go out there every week and just be reasonable, right? Like he's not going to hurt you. Kind of guy we generally like to start out of the shortstop or the catcher position, right? Is generally where we like to find him. So Crawford filling, the Brandon Crawford is now JP Crawford, and that's quite okay. I don't know if you guys feel a little bit differently about this one, but I'm happy with it. Rob just switched.
Here.
To whatever is happening right now.
This is why people need to be on for the live stream, right? This is why they need to be here, because JP Crawford.
Now I have to go into the settings of YouTube and change the rating.
Well, it looks like I'm very pale here, but I swear I've had some sunburns that should give me some solid. You'll see next week. Anyway, JP Crawford, I got so excited, my shirt just exploded right off. And then I had to switch to the Cowboy hat to keep the heat from me. But everybody who owns JP Crawford, everybody who knows, former top prospect, right? But not 1 year, right, guys? JP Crawford was like the consensus top prospect for 2 seasons. So think of the Joe Adells. Think of all of those slow burn guys that we don't know what they're going to do. JP Crawford was the bat guy. He was known to be a good defender, but now he's being like elite defender, and 327 average over a month, almost a 900 OPS. Bingo, bango, bongo, 5 categories, and he's not striking out at the same clip that he was before. Also fewer strikeouts and fewer walks, which is good. That more balls in play, right? More times getting on base. I'm very happy with JP Crawford, and the one league I sold him off in, very regretful, because I kept Didi over JP Crawford.
Well, in a fun fact over Crawford here is the big one that hurts him is the breaking pitches. Like that tends to be what he struggles with. And he's making incremental improvements year over year. He's never going to be an elite breaking ball hitter, but he is moving towards mediocre. And so that changes the profile of Crawford. So instead of 230, 240, where he's getting wiped out by everything except for fastballs, now he's starting to hit those other pitches. He's hitting 314 against the fastball this year and 326 against off speed, but just 214 against that breaking pitch. So if we see that breaking pitch continue to jump moving forward, we're going to be pretty happy with where that goes moving forward. So, and I said 214, it was 194. My apologies. But we're like, even if we see 220 out of that breaking pitch in future years, huge play here, right? So I like where it's going, and I like a strong finish out of Crawford, because Seattle legitimately can't be worse, right? They can only be better than they've been offensively.
Well, see, everybody's crapping on Seattle because they've had those, like, they were no hit earlier in the year. Was it them in Cleveland that were both no hit more than once? But also like injuries. But Seattle's still a 500 club, despite all of these troubles, despite injuries to the starting rotation and all those things. They're still clawing away. And I keep hearing people talk about, well, when Seattle sells off, I don't know that that's going to happen. Like, I could see them doing the peripheral, like little, relief pitcher improvements and just those tiny things, a bench bat here or there, and try to solidify, because they've got their 9 now. If Shedlong can be a more offensive second baseman, that's a good thing. If Dylan Moore can like settle himself, he started so poorly this year, came back, had a home run early after coming back from the IL, but again has been back to like really just 3 true outcome, and not not the home run good part of the 3 true outcome, really 2 true outcomes for him. But if they can just solidify, they're going to continue to roll. They're not going to sell off this year unless they feel like there's no way in heck they can possibly get that second wild card. Like, they would take it because it's important to Dipoto to show his team and his players that he's going to do something when given the opportunity. And then next year, building upon that. So I don't see anything but more at bats. Go ahead.
They have to sell. Like, if they get anything for a Seager and a Haniger, they have to sell.
They have to get the return in order to do that, because they have to know that with baseball, there's so many possibilities for the second half of the year to go their way. Like, Kikuchi's been better. They got Gonzalez. They got Gonzalez back, who they love. Gilbert's doing his thing. They've got the right parts moving in the right direction. And Flexen looks like he's turned the corner. When your rotation is leading the way and you've got talent on the diamond, you can't sell it. To me, you can't sell it off, because it's not like let's see. It's not like they've got Kelnick that can come up and hit 280 rest of season. Like they that's not a thing anymore, right? Like they know that reality.
You can't pretend that this team's ready to win.
I can pretend all I want that Seattle is ready to win.
Sure, but
I do that a lot.
It
was Crawford's excitement. Let's go to a more depressing guy then. Let's talk Willie Castro. I'm curious to your thoughts, both of you. Maybe we can kick it to Ronnie first. Second, third base eligible, shortstop eligible as well. Detroit, he was supposed to be him and Victor Reyes. Does everyone remember Victor Reyes was supposed to be a baseball player for Detroit? Anyway, he's hurt, but that doesn't forgive the poor performance before. What are your thoughts on a guy like Willie Castro, who's somewhat disappointing in all categories? The last month, his OPS has been decent. A lot of runs and RBIs the last month, 14 and 13 respectively. How do you feel about Willie Castro? Is he turning it around? Is this a mirage? I'm going to put my shirt back on.
Thank you. Willie, I think we got what we got with Willie this year. His biggest benefit is his multi-position eligibility. I'm still in on Willie for the future. I like him as a depth guy. I really love his multi-position eligibility. And I'm just hoping that he kind of pulls like a JP Crawford light and just kind of becomes serviceable at one of those positions. And I could just slot on my lineup. But for this year right now, if I need the spot, I'm kicking him out. If I'm out of it, I'm not rushing him off my roster. I'm kind of just keeping him on my bench. It really depends on my situation. I'd like to see him another year.
I'm not against that either, but I do think he's a bench bat. I think realistically that's what he's going to be on both your fantasy team and at the major league level. There is some talent coming for Detroit, right? Like they've got infield talent that is going to make it very difficult for Castro to find playing time. I'm making an assumption, but I think they will solve the shortstop position this offseason. I think that's inevitable. I think it's the number one thing they need to do this offseason because they need to make it easier for their pitching, their young pitching, to get ground ball outs on the left side of that infield. So I for that reason right there, and then you have some compression of position talent in the infield, I really think it's going to go away.
Okay. All right. So the next guy up here is Hunter Renfroe, outfielder with the Red Sox. I'll give the stat line, and then Ty, I'll kick it to you first. We can then switch over to Ronnie here. So in 232 at-bats, that is regular playing time. That's where we are in the season right now. 38 runs, 37 RBIs, but only 9 dingers for him. And I'm saying only because this is supposed to be a power bat, and we've seen a lot more guys with and around that. No stolen bases for him. 2.5, almost a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. The OPS below 800, the average 272, which is good. But the last month has been the bulk of his production, a 333 average, 944 OPS. So Ty, what are your thoughts on a guy like Renfroe? I know earlier in the year, I feel like you were against it, right? You didn't like the fit in Boston. Are you still feeling that?
It wasn't that I didn't like the fit. I don't like the strikeout numbers in the AL East. Like I wasn't overly impressed with Hunter Renfroe in the playoffs last year. I think there was, some value he brings to the defensive side, still a big arm. But with Verdugo, he was sliding to left, which kind of mitigated some of that value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes it tough for anybody to run on a ground ball through the left side in Boston with the short porch. But, there's still some things to look towards, with Renfroe. Power, as you mentioned, is huge. And he definitely lifts the ball. But, the stuff that you see in his career so far, 167 in March, 211 in April, 286. And then we start to see it normalize a little bit more towards his career average, 250 in June, which we've seen, 209 in July, 224, 209, 417. So, we're entering a window here where there's nothing overly exciting. And this has been his entire career, a little bit of power, some production, some strikeout numbers, and just no consistency to justify it. So it's a pull heavy bat. The bombs are going to go out to left field in Boston. I don't know. Just not enough for me to waste an outfield spot, if I'm honest.
All right. And Ronnie, for yourself?
This is a hot streak roto bat for me, boys. I'm playing him in the Dingers League. I'm playing him in another roto league I'm in. And just kind of riding him out while I can, and then he'll flip back to be my bench bat. But for right now, I'm promoting him and getting all that I can out of this opportunity during this hot streak right now. And then once he starts to go cold, which he will, then I'll swap him out. But I think you just kind of take the opportunities as they come throughout the grind of the season. This is one of those guys that just plays hot streak right now.
Okay, so certainly not a target for either of you guys then in Dynasty based on what you've said. Simply a matter of if he's available or if the cost is very low, you'll take him. Get what you get, but you're certainly not willing to make an investment in a guy like Hunter Renfroe.
No, I'm not doing anything of value. If I'm in a league where he costs like a bunch of money right now.
So contract league or something.
Yeah, contract league. If I can acquire him and the team I'm getting him from is paying most of his salary and I got to give him something small back, like that's the kind of thing I'd be doing. Okay.
Next guy up then is Steven Dugar. And then we do have a couple of pitchers to have a conversation with after, but Dugar's the last hitter that we're talking about this week. 26% owned on Yahoo. It's up 1% now. It's 27%, but that has doubled over the last week. And to Ronnie, to your point earlier, the last month for him has been good. The season on whole looks really good. 325 average, 968 OPS. Counting stats over the last month have been huge. It was very minimal prior to the last month, which was about 50 at bats or so. But in the last 80 at bats, 18 runs, 16 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 4 dingers, a little bit more than 2 strikeouts to every 1 walk. But he's been batting over 400 with regular playing time the last 2 weeks, which is, I mean, we know what a hot streak is. This is what a hot streak looks like. Is Steven Dugar the exact same thing to both of you as Hunter Renfroe? Is there a difference between the guys that you would see fit here dynasty wise, keeper rest of season? Ronnie, throw it to you first.
I think he's been a little bit more consistent this year, and in single season, I think he's kind of a sneaky guy that you can get to kind of help you win your league. He's going to fill out your outfield. He's going to give you a bench depth. I think I have added him in a couple of places just for that purpose of just helping me grind through this year. And I think the drop off from him, some of the guys that I've lost, like if I've lost a Mike Trout and I've been trying to find a replacement right now, just riding him and Renfroe to a degree, but that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. And in keeper or dynasty league, I might not rush out to pay up for him, but if I can get him and somehow keep him after the season ends, I'd be interested in that.
Okay. Ty?
I'm on the other side of this. Very similar to Bobby Bradley I mentioned earlier. So far this season against the fastball hitting 467, right? So that's going to change, right? The scouting report says don't throw fastballs, right? And that's it, because he's hitting 147 against the breaking pitches in 059. Yeah, bingo, 059 against the off speed. So that's not what you're looking for long-term success. I hate this. This is the biggest no-no for me. I don't touch anyone with this profile, because eventually you're going to stop seeing those fastballs. And, there's a reason Steven Dugar hasn't stuck at the major league level. He did do some good things in minor leagues as he got close to the major league level. And then we saw some minor success, and then it disappeared. People just forgot that Steven Dugar can hit the fastball. Right. So that is definitely a piece of that puzzle. So I'm out. I'm not touching them, not acquiring them. That's my position on it.
All right. Fair enough. So we've got the move on to Jameson Taillon, who Billy B has said, I want to know how everyone feels about Jameson Taillon in relation to dynasty. So the short and ugly version is 64 in the third innings this year for Taillon, 5.18 ERA. But in 64 in the third innings, 69 Ks. Nice. 2-4 record this year, 2 quality starts. But the last 2 weeks, which are a 6 1/3 inning start, and whatever the math works out to, because it's been 11 innings, he has 11 Ks over that time and a 2.45 ERA with 1 quality start. So basically, has Taillon righted the ship, and are we going to see good things moving forward, or is this a blip? My 2 cents on this, and then Ty, I'll kick it back to you, and then Ronnie for the final, is Taillon is going to have a weird season of ups and downs. It has not been good to start, but I think it will be better rest of season than it has been to start. So that 5.18 ERA, that is the worst we are going to see, and we should see a full point below, into the low into the fours beyond. We should see that strikeout rate continue, and Taillon just progress, slow and steady, and big things from Taillon more so in 2022. Certainly not a league winner, in my opinion, rest of 21. So Ty, if whatever bottle just fell, or child, if you pick that up, and then give us your thoughts on Jameson.
Yeah, no, we're safe. Good thing the bottle's empty. The spot on Taillon for me is I'm scared, right? I do think that we're going to see some increased production. I think we're going to see some better things, but I'm still staying away and probably completely out, because we have enough of an injury track record here. And the Yankees have done a pretty good job of limiting his innings, which is different for the Yankees. They don't normally do that with veterans. They've done a decent job with that. And so it could save him, but for the reason that it might not, I'm staying away. This season has had way too many injuries. Like, I have double-digit pitchers injured on multiple teams. I'm not looking to grab a guy that has that history, right? Like I mentioned earlier with Brad Keller, like if I'm going to spend to acquire on 3 to 4 ERA type guys, like I'm looking for guys that I know are going to be healthy. So for me, Taillon's not that guy, and for that reason, I'm staying away. But if he makes it through this year, love him as an off-season acquisition.
Yeah, I'm about the same. He had a good track record before, obviously his industry's happening. I feel like he can throw out a good game for you. This is more of a streamer guy for me this year, and then see how he kind of ends up at the end of the year if I want to take him forward. But I think you can get some value out of him if you play the matchups. But
okay,
he's not going to be sitting out there in the waiver. It's like streaming from your own bench almost.
In a really interesting career high exit velocity, right? For a guy that likes to pitch down in the zone with good off speed, that's a weird blip. So a little concerning. That's the only thing I'll end with on that one.
All right, the last guy for us tonight is Tony Santillan with Cincinnati. Ronnie, you recently acquired him in a trade in the to-be-named-later points league, 30 team with contracts and all sorts of fun things in that. Ty and I have been talking about him off and on since the start of the season. Obviously, that's the reason why you went after him, because of our recommendation. And fun fact for everybody, while we have been live with the live stream here tonight, Michael King was picked up in 2 of the leagues I intended to pick him up in, and neither were by me. One of them, you can pick up players immediately, and since we've been recording, someone picked him up. So screw you, guy that has the Lexington Legends in the RBI league. And anyway, so Santillan, if you can tell, we know he was doing well at AAA, high K rate. What was the trade? Was that, you said it was a Wade Miley trade that you made? Can you just talk a little bit? So what was your thinking in that? Because that's going to basically be 6 years maximum that you could have Santillan, right?
Yeah. So my deal with that is in to be named later. And I currently have, before this trade, 2 pitchers under contract for next year. And I am going to have to pull some magic out of my hat to make the playoffs. I still think I'll do good by points standards, but it's going to need some magic. Right. Signed Wade in the off season for absolute league minimum to a 1-year deal. So I can't take him with me. And basically just wanted to cash in on what I think is his peak for the season, the hot streak. I think the rest of the season, I can't pronounce his name very well. Stantillion is going to, the drop off between Miley and Stantillion will not be like catastrophic. They're going to be, if Miley's going to give me 18 points, Stantillion's going to give me like 14 and a half points a game. So like, that's not the reason I'm going to lose the week. I also got a 4th round pick in that draft, or that trade come back to me. I get back your 10th actually. And then there's another throw-in reliever for Seattle, the other Duggar.
You acquired or traded him away?
I acquired him.
I
think just
Robert Duggar.
Yeah, he was just throwing. But the big thing was I can't take Miley to the next season with me. And I think the rest of this season, the drop-off between Miley and Stantillion won't be what makes me win or lose. So that was really the premise behind that, is I needed an asset to bring forward next year and then not absolutely crush myself this year.
Okay, fair enough. Now, we as we were talking about him before, one of the things that we liked about him was the fact that in Cincinnati, we thought playing time might come. We know Jeff Hoffman's been hurt. We know Sonny Gray, like Ty, is stamping Sonny Gray. Where are you saying he's going, Ty?
Ooh.
You said somewhere the last time we recorded, I think.
Yeah, and I forget who I said.
Okay. Well, either way, the idea is that the door is open in Cincinnati for guys like him to sneak in. Now, somebody else off topic, but somebody who I noticed that you happen to have on your team is it Thompson with Miami?
Yeah. I added him because I needed a starter.
Was he a free agent signing? How did you come about him? Because I just noticed that you happen to have kind of 3 peripheral non-prospect, and Santillan as a non-prospect, I mean the fact that like they're not coveted, right? We know everybody that talks and writes and things. It's all top 150 overall and whatever. But Thompson, how did you come about acquiring? Was it just saw something recently on him, or more than that?
So in this league, because I'm so desperate for starting pitchers, honestly, what I do is I sort the player pool by game started the last 30 days and say, who the heck is getting some starts?
So you were just looking at that. Okay.
Favor, and I'm like, I need to get starters in my roster. I do not care as long as they're starting the game.
Right.
And that is how I came across him.
So was he a free agent in that 30-team league?
He was in that.
All right.
A week and a half ago.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to know for everybody. And now it's going to be very hard. I acquired him Friday, I think, in a league, and then another one where we ran waivers this morning and I didn't end up getting him. Someone was ahead. So he's going. So the possibility is there. And in your redrafts, Miami's underrated. I don't know how you feel about it, Ronnie. Ty and I, we talked a little bit before. Ty's not as sold on Miami over the course of the season. I think they're a 500 plus team. I don't know if you feel the same way, that, they've got 82 wins in them versus 80. But I feel like they're always a tough matchup. So
that park though at home is a great pitcher's park. So from a points league, I'm just looking to hit thresholds of what I need to score, which I typically want at least 15 points out of my starting pitcher.
Right. So depending on your league settings, right? What a win is worth versus, a save and all that stuff. Yeah.
Like obviously if you have stud pitchers getting 30, but I don't. So my strategy is bulk amount of starting pitching. So I want in the mid to high teens or more from all of my starters. So that's kind of where this Thompson comes in. I think they are underrated to a degree for sure.
Well,
okay.
And just to counter the point, I don't think they're not a good long-term play, but they're 33 and 44 right now. So they got a very long way to go in a division that has been playing very poorly, but is still very good.
Everybody's beating up on everybody in that division.
Yeah, like they're not going to get to 500. They're 11 down already. It's not going to get better.
But this was before the season started as well, Ty, that we were talking about. And I was thinking Miami, everybody kind of thought last year was a mirage in Miami. And of course, they've had issues, right? Like Sixto Sanchez is supposed to be leading that rotation with Sandy Alcantara. And instead it's Trevor Rogers, who nobody thought anything of. And when we even ran a poll in the offseason, which I know I've mentioned it before, but it's important to note, like I put Trevor Rogers on and people were like, why? And I was like, well, this guy's got a shot at playing time. Like that's important. Like the first thing a player needs in order to succeed is opportunity. If they have the skills, they then need to, obviously possess them long-term. But it was one of those things where it was like slam dunk. It's going to be Sixto Sanchez over the next 5 years. Like, he's going to beat out Lopez. He's going to beat out Alcantara. He's going to beat out everybody else. And right now, Alcantara has obviously solidified himself as a regular every fifth day guy. But yeah, Miami just can't seem to get that streak together, right? Like we've seen Toronto lose 5 in a row, lose 6 in a row, and then they, kind of have like a 6-2 streak or something. But they've had tough schedule as far as what everybody tells us. It's been a tough schedule. I'm sure every game's tough in MLB, but now it's supposed to soften a bit. And it's when they're winding up against Miami that teams or everybody's saying, well, now the schedule's soft, right? It's Baltimore, it's Miami. So we'll have to see how the gauntlet goes for Miami, if they're able to right the ship or if they are just going to tank. Because if they tank, there's some interesting names like Corey Dickerson and other guys who could float around and be traded. Aguilar's another one to see what could move out of Miami if they're to do a reset for themselves. That's another episode.
Definitely. And we will get to that stuff as we look further into the season. We'll talk on trades and other things, but we're getting a little long in the tooth here tonight. So I do want to say thanks to Ronnie for joining us. thank you for toning down the Blue Jay paraphernalia. But we're happy to have you on. Love the discussions, and to everyone out there listening, make sure you hit up us at Dingers Pod, at Robbie Baseball 1, and me at Tourney Boss. Until next time, it's been Tyler and Rob with Ronnie on Dingers.